So without further ado, Monte Anderson.
I am a desperate man. Let me say that. About 30 years ago, when I started this business, I came from the southern half of Dallas County. And those of you that know the city of Dallas, you'll know that it's a city of two halves. The haves in the north, okay, and the have-nots in the south. And that's where I was, in the south. And I couldn't understand why all of my friends left and why we didn't have coffee shops, and we didn't have good places to eat or shop or those kinds of things. And I began to study those things. And that's where the story starts today, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about incremental development, which is something I didn't plan to do when I started this nearly 30 years ago. I didn't plan to be doing this, but over time, this has become one of the most important things in town building and rebuilding cities all over the country. So we're going to talk a little today about cultivating neighborhoods and small-scale development. So our goal at Incremental Development Alliance, which is the nonprofit that I'm here on behalf of today, is to create 1,000 small developers that do town building and neighborhood building all over the country. My business is a company called Options Real Estate, which I am a real estate developer. I do brokerage, leasing, property management, construction, my own finance. I sign my own deals. You know, I do my own projects. And so a lot of the work that you're going to see with incremental development comes from my original workings. So over the years, a lot of what we study and what we're presenting these days are those projects. And so that's what we're going to see today. And so what we do at Incremental Development, we teach and nurture implementers, which is hopefully you. It could be a dentist. You know, it could be the butcher, it could be the baker, the candlestick maker, it could be the artist, it could be the developer. So we're looking to train small business owners and neighborhood advocates and real estate professionals to become small developers. And we coach civic groups and government agencies on how to create an ecosystem that makes this work for developers and entrepreneurs. And then we connect a continent of neighborhood level doers to celebrate the successes and share the notes through opportunities. And so everybody out there is not going to be a real estate developer, but everybody out there, I'm assuming everybody in this room, cares about what your neighborhood's going to look like. So what is incremental development? Basically, incremental development is 1 to 3 stories in your neighborhood, constantly evolving and generating, which is how this country was built. If you look at your old downtowns and you look at old quality neighborhoods, the ones we really like on the Route 66 as you go down this direction, you know, where the buildings are close to the street and there's street parking, you know, there's the good sidewalks, the places we really love. So what do we hope to see in the world? And this is what we hope to see, is we hope to see, you know, more than just creating jobs, we hope to see building wealth. And if you'll look at these 2 slides up here, the one on the one side is if you went out today and wanted to buy a Dunkin' Donuts franchise, it'd cost you about $500,000 to get a Dunkin' Donuts franchise, and you'd rent a space in some strip center. Or you could do it the other way, is you could start your own donut company and you could buy a building. You'd own the building and maybe have a rental unit with it. For about $500,000, you could own the building and start your business at the same time. One is a renter, one is building wealth over a lifetime and being able to pass that on to your family in the future. And so here's the value proposition for cities. One is we have to build support systems for the small developer. We have to build an ecosystem. Okay, so what our value proposition for the cities is this, is to build supportive small developer ecosystems. That means that you've got to have lenders and investors. You've got to have codes and processes for infill in these neighborhoods, that you have all the vacant lots and things. And what you earn from this is a robust anti-fragile tax base with increased taxes per acre, locally owned businesses, and stable and adaptable districts. So what things stay in town when the economies go up and down? The little small businesses on Main Street. What things leave? The big boxes. the big retail centers and the big malls and the big shopping centers, they go away. And so this is what we call as town building. And the problem is there's not enough small developers. There's not enough people out there to fill this demand. See, a big developer can't do this kind of work. So a friend of mine, his name is Don Williams, and he took over for Trammell Crow. So he became Trammell Crow when Trammell Crow retired. So he became the biggest developer in the world. And he would always come to me because he was interested in South Dallas and he wanted to help. He was always wanting to help. And I would try to explain this to him and he just couldn't get it in his mind. He just couldn't understand why somebody would build a little retail building with 2 apartments on top. He just couldn't understand that. And that's the problem we have today, is that Wall Street and developers and investors and people like that, they have to have big deals, big fees, big brokerage fees, and they have to have those big deals to do these. They can't do it on a local level. So how do we respond? And this is our approach. We need locals who care about their neighborhoods and that are willing to learn, like you are tonight. We need to patch the local systems, build networks to support them long term. So right now in Amarillo, you've got the downtown, and then you've got all these vacant pieces of land all stretched out. You've got sprawl. And you've got to fill these pieces in, and you've got to create people in those places so there's business and people on the streets. And you got to work in small steps so you can make little mistakes early. See, if you do a 200-unit apartment complex and you make a mistake in one apartment, you've made it 200 times. If you do it like we're talking about, you make a mistake in 2 units, the next one you can change. So this is the natural progression, and this is what I would say to people who talk to me all the time about, well, what do I do, Monty? I want to be a developer, but I don't have any money, and I want to start. I said, you know what? Put a tent, put a street market up. You got a little bit more money, maybe you can buy a trailer and get the city to let you put it in the parking lot and sell some snow cones. You got a little more, you have a kiosk. A little more, maybe a couple of units in a retail building, maybe a fourplex, or maybe a small mixed-use building. So you can see the natural progression of how you would learn and how you would build confidence as a real estate developer, how you'd build confidence. So I'm going to give you the secret right now, the secret that I have in doing this for 30 years, and I've never had a bankruptcy, never had a foreclosure, and I've done thousands of deals. And I'm going to give you the secret right now. Is find you a place and commit to it for the rest of your life. So I asked Tim today, I said, Tim, will you do me a favor? Will you commit to staying in Amarillo for the rest of your life and working on building the city? And so this is what you call cultivating your farm. If you're a farmer, and I know you have farmers up here, you wouldn't farm in one place and then get off your tractor during the middle of the day and head down the road and go work in another place, right? As a farmer, you know everything. You know when the seasons change. You know when there's certain bugs come in. You know what the soil conditions look like. Building a town's the same way. You know who's moving. Who's the best chef in town who's working at the big hotel down the road that needs to have his own business or her business. Who's got the best candle? Who makes the best candle that could be in one of our storefronts? Those kind of things. And these are the 3 farms I'm going to talk to you about today, which are mine, which is South Dallas, Duncanville, Desoto, which is a first-ring suburb, and then Midlothian. And this is a path of my family flighting from one place to the other over the years, and where my family lives is down this corridor. And so we're going to look at some case studies in these neighborhoods. So we'll start off with Duncanville, is where I'm currently living. And I'm also a city councilman, with something happened to me a few months ago. I lost my mind for a minute, and I signed up for city council. And nobody ran against me, So I've not spent one penny, and so it's really kind of hurt me in my development work. But we're doing lots of good things in Duncanville right now. And so you can see where Duncanville is compared to Dallas. And so my Duncanville farm, what I did was, in the early days, it may be similar to what you might see around here right now. I bought a whole bunch of properties right here in a neighborhood really cheap because nobody wanted them. Nobody was coming down there to Duncanville. And so this is what the main street looked like. It was a one-sided main street. See, it had 4 lanes, and to the left is a railroad track, and then the right, you can see all the empty buildings over there. And so the city, we hired a planner to come in to make our Main Street look a little better, to give some landscaping and some lights and things like that. And then on the left-hand side is the before picture, and then on the right-hand side you can see the after picture. And we downsized the 4-lane into 3 lanes. And then we began to work on it. It's about 2011. And then this is what it looks like today in 2019. It's very vibrant. It's very cool. We just opened up a bar the other night. We got a real coffee shop and some other things that are just like, for some people it's not that exciting, but to have a little 400 square foot cool coffee shop to open up in a place I can walk to is about as good as it gets for me these days. And so what we did in Duncanville is we didn't like the way, this was before I was on the council, we didn't like the way the city was planning things, and they didn't know what they were doing, and they were asking us what to do. So we started a citizen-led design studio right in my office. That's my conference table. And we came together monthly, the Duncanville Design Studio, and we decided we wanted bike lanes. We wanted little buildings that looked like this. We wanted the parks to look like this. We wanted art on the streets. You know, we wanted more places for public events. We wanted concerts in the park, all the things. So we began to design the whole city. One of the first things we did was a street market. So in the downtown was dead. As you can see here, this is the little stretch of road that's right next to the railroad track in the red. And so we decided to set tents up to look like future buildings. So, and we wanted form. We wanted the street with the buildings down both sides, so it felt good. And so we created the other side of the Main Street, which was vacant. And it's been a very successful street market now, and it did several things. We were able to incubate entrepreneurs. We were able to get people to bring all that junk out of their house, bring it out here and sell it. And then we were also able to create more activity for the businesses that were there. And so this is one of the buildings downtown that I had. I owned all these buildings. And so normally as an owner of a bunch of buildings, right, you want to be the king. I have all the buildings and I can rent to you, come rent in my space. Well, people didn't want to come rent in Duncanville. So what I learned real quick is that people did want to come and own property in Duncanville. So see, there's a different twist here. This is not the regular way a real estate guy thinks. So I said, a friend of mine had a call center. I sold him this old post office, and he put 75 employees in there. My 75 employees to my Main Street, that's a lunch crowd. So then we took, this is a modest house in the downtown, and this is a lady here that worked for me in another project I'm going to show you, and it's now her house. She was a housekeeper in a hotel I owned, and when I sold the hotel and she came with me, I said, I'm not going to hire you, but I'm going to help you start your own housekeeping business. So instead of making $10 an hour now, she makes $60,000 a year, and this is her little house. And as you can see in this little house, we didn't just put lipstick on a pig. We did it right. We took a little $40,000 house and we put $75,000 in it. So we did the kitchens, and we did the bathrooms. We did all the hardware is good. Like you go in the front door of a house, like a cheap house. This is what we do in our rental neighborhoods. We put the cheapest hardware on the doors, right? We put the cheapest faucets on those places. Those are the things that need to be really good because they make people feel good. I'm not talking about the gold package, okay? I'm not talking about a McMansion. I'm talking about slick, clean walls, clean floors, a good countertop, good insulation, good air conditioning. This changes the neighborhood because, see, we're a product of our built environment. If you put me in a cheap house with a crappy air conditioner and cheap hardware on the door, I'm going to be a different person than if you put me in a house like this. So this is an old real estate office that's now a pet store. I mean, this is a local pet store in the days of Against PetSmart. This guy does $1 million a year in dog grooming and saltwater fish. This is an old mechanic shop we turned into an outreach center Somebody said, well, Monty, why'd you put the outreach center, the free foods place, the food bank, amongst all your new development? Why would you do that? And I said, because the poor people live in this neighborhood, and we want people in this neighborhood to be lifted up. We don't want to run them out. See, we didn't want to run anybody off. We wanted the neighborhood to lift itself up. And so this is an old church, which is abandoned. We turned it into a dance studio and a retail strip center. And in the early days, we wanted a coffee shop. So I thought in the early days we'd get a Starbucks coffee down here on Main Street. That'd be really cool. Well, Starbucks wasn't coming. But the donut shop would come. And so we got the donut shop to serve better coffee. Okay, and we got our coffee shop. And today I would tell you, I would rather have this donut shop than Starbucks. So, and then artists, we toured the mall today with the artists, and what a beautiful place. I mean, what an amazing place you have out there.
Sunset Center.
Yeah, the Sunset Center?
Yeah.
And these two over here, I can't remember their names, but they should be very proud. I mean, what's inside that space was unbelievably beautiful. And what I thought about a tale of these two artists here, the artist on the left is a guy that I gave space to for a year. And he was a cool hipster dude. You've seen him, these art hipster dude, musician, nice guy, great guy. And he had art shows in this space. And I gave him a year to get it going for free. Gave him space. He didn't get it going. It wouldn't work. It didn't do anything. We couldn't get the community really coming out. Nobody really bought art in Duncanville, Texas. But the lady next to him came to me. She's an artist with about 5,000 followers on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And she did two things. She painted coffee cups, painted your face on a coffee cup, and put them in a kiln, and then she taught art classes. When she came in, I didn't have to give her free rent. She could pay rent. See, and so what we had to do was scale ourselves down to the level. I don't say it's down. I think we scaled ourselves up because she's creating hundreds of kids and adult artists these days. So you got to bring activity to making, like in these places in downtown and these other places like the mall and those places out there, you got to get activity on site all the time. And I don't care if it's doing molding or woodworking or painting or whatever it is, but you got to get things going. This is the other old post office, and I don't know what happened to my other photo, but this used to be a one-story building. Now it's got 2 offices downstairs and 2 apartments upstairs. So we ripped the roof off, put 2 apartments. This was on the tax rolls for $60,000. We didn't create any new infrastructure, and now it's on the tax rolls for $650,000. Okay, and it's a very vibrant part of the city now. And getting those residents living down in the downtown amongst the retail is very important. So here's another one down here. This is, I'm an environmentalist and a preservationist also, and an urbanist, and an incrementalist, and an activist, and a capitalist. I live in a tortured soul, I promise you. But this is a little building that was the only building I've ever torn down, and it was carpet was on the dirt, and it was valued at $13,000. The normal thinking, and from the planners that came to town, said we had to build this big building there, but I didn't want to take risks. I didn't want to take a risk. I'm a small developer. I didn't want to take a big risk. I didn't know if it was going to work. So I said, look, I'm going to tear it down and build what was there. But instead of 1 tenant in this 2,700 square foot building, I'm going to put 4 tenants in here. So you see, the front's got 2 900 square foot retail spaces. What I found out in Main Street in Duncanville, I could get the same amount of rent, $1,750 a month for 900 square foot or 2,000 feet. See, they only needed 900. And so at 900, at $1,750, I'm getting enough rent to make it bankable, to make it financeable. And then in the back, you can see on the back street, see, it's 1 story. I put 2 400 square foot apartments back there. So I could only get $650 for apartments in Duncanville. So I scaled it down in size to the point where it would make a return, where I could build a unit that would return. So what I do is I scale things down until the numbers work. So see, if an area can't afford $1,000, then we scale it down in size until the numbers work. And then you can live small if you live urban. If you got a place to walk to, a park, school, coffee shop, haircut, you can live small. You can't live small out in suburbia. You'll go stir crazy. And so this little 2,700 square foot building, I built it, and then I wanted to sell it to another entrepreneur. And I found a little entrepreneur to buy it. He was a barber, 28-year-old kid. He was a barber, but he was the coolest barber around, and had this cult of barbers that was just really, they were helping each other. And so I sold it to them for 100% financed. And the way that we did that, I'll show you how we did that. We had a tri-party system. And the tri-party system's like this. We had the entrepreneur who wanted to buy the building, okay? And he didn't really want to lease the building. I couldn't get him to come in to the main street unless he could buy. And then the developer, and you had the bank. And so it was a $475,000 building when buildings were only selling for like $150 there, but he paid $475 for it, which made a little profit for me. And he had 2 retail spaces and 2 apartments. And as you can see, the 2 retail spaces are very small and the 2 apartments are like little flats. You can see the floor plan. And see what the apartment looks like? See, when you build something small, and you see the refrigerator and the stove in the apartment, it's appropriately scaled. It's more expensive to buy a little refrigerator and a little stove than it is to buy the big fat refrigerator and a big stove. But that wouldn't have looked right in here. And I wouldn't have been able to get the good rents if I didn't get the scale right. But you can see this is just a box. Concrete floors, slick white walls, appropriate scaled, and now it leases for $675 a month. And so here's how the financing works. So we took him to the bank. So he goes to the bank, and the bank says, we'll give you 75% loan on this deal. And so what I did was I loaned him the other 25%. I became the community investor, the developer and the community investor. And so I put the money in the bank, and the bank and I have an agreement together to loan him the money, and he gets 100%. So baby boomers out there, baby boomers were the richest of all time of history. We have money in the bank right now. And that money in the bank needs to be going into investing into these younger entrepreneurs that are coming into the city. And this kind of agreement banks do these kind of agreements, and it will work. And so you get your money back. It's not giving anybody. See, I don't believe in grants and giveaways and all of that stuff. I don't believe in any of that. You borrow money, you need to pay it back. So this is what we've got. This is a loft. This is a retail project with loft apartments above that I'm actually partners with the city of Duncanville since 2003. So for 16 years, we've been partners in this project. They didn't give me any money. They invested with me. They invested with me back when it was not so popular. This is where I live, too. I live in one of the units above this. And as you can see, there's our coffee shop. And you got the buildings close to the road. It was built brand new in 2003. It's 100% leased all the time. You can see the cars, parallel parking on one side and on street, head in on the other, and then a lot of the extra parking in the back. And see, look at these little retail stores. That's 11,000 square feet of stores there, and you count how many businesses are there. There's 12 businesses and 11,000 square feet. The littlest one there is 200 square feet. See, by downsizing the square footage, I could go up to $25 a square foot in price, where in the market we could only get 12. So if you have space here right now, you have places here in Amarillo right now that you can't get really high rents unless you downsize the space. And then you can make the numbers work. And so these are the loft apartments. You see there's different sizes. See, I live in one of the apartments. I'm the owner of the building. But you know who else lives with me in that building? The guy that drives the van for the pharmacy down the street that delivers drugs. So see, he doesn't even own a car. In fact, he's mentally challenged, let's say. We live in the same place. See, I believe in mixing the low income and the workforce housing and affluent housing all together. And you see, this was a restaurant. At one point, we had a Japanese restaurant that was 3,500 square feet here, and you can see it's a pretty big little restaurant. And what we did is they left after 10 years, and so we took that space, at 3,500 square feet. This is, again, a lesson in scale, and we did A, B, and C. A is the Chinese food restaurant that moved in there that didn't need the big space, okay? So we downsized it. We put a bar and a hamburger joint where B is, and a coffee shop where C is. And let's look at the numbers. Let's just see what happened here. before the restaurant that was renting the whole thing, they were paying $22 a square foot in rent. Okay? $77,000 a year. Okay, you with me? When we split it up, we lowered the dollar amount on the restaurant, the Rice Pot restaurant, from $6,400 a month to $4,200 a month. So they didn't need the extra space. But we went from $22 a square foot to $26 a square foot in rent. And then on the littler spaces, B, we went to $28.50, and the C, we went to $32.50. We increased the income just of that space by $17,000 a year. And an 8% cap rate, which is an appraisal term, how you appraise property, we increased the value of this property by $220,000 by changing the scale. Okay, so let's look at these and how they perform for a city, these little buildings that I've got compared to Costco. Do y'all have Costco? Y'all have Costco up here? You have Sam's, or you have Walmart. They're all the same. So this is the Costco or the Sam's out on the freeway, and the two little buildings I have downtown. And the Costco sits on 16 acres. It's 152,000 square feet. You've got the big boxes out here on, is it the south side of town? South, north?
West, southwest.
Southwest. You got the big boxes out there, and this is how most of those perform, about like this. So it's on the tax rolls for $8.1 million. And if you divide that $8.1 million by 16 acres, it's on the tax rolls for $492,000 an acre. And if anybody was here and saw Kevin Shepard when he came through here recently, $492,000 an acre will not pay for the infrastructure around that property. It will not support itself. It's a negative pay. So let's look at my two little buildings, the two little modest buildings. The little 2-story orange building is on the tax rolls for $4 million per acre. The other little building with the barber shop is on the tax rolls for $6.3 million per acre. So which is the better value for a city? And sales tax generally comes along about the same with this. We can't really get the sales tax figures like we can the real estate values. So which is the better value for a city? Which is the better way to build the city? With the sprawl with the boxes, or do you reorganize the city a little bit? So here they are, this is the power of small, as you can see. So let's look at Oak Cliff. I've taken stuff like fire stations and restored them and turned them into restaurants. So as you can see over time, they evolve. You know, it's office and design studios for a while, and then it evolves into a restaurant down the road and gets more money. The infamous Texas Theater, I restored the Texas Theater. This was where Oswald was captured after he shot President Kennedy. And we started this off as a nonprofit. Today it's back in the hands of a for-profit. This guy here was a young filmmaker. And we restored it with nonprofit money. We restored it with government grants from the community block grant, development grants. And then when we got it up and running, we sold it back into the hands of the private sector. And now it's back in the hands of the private sector. And it's one of the only single-screen movie theaters in the United States today that actually makes money. Independent little movie theater. And this is Fort Worth Avenue. This is the old highway, like your Route 66. It goes from Dallas to Fort Worth. And back in about the late 90s, I bought a piece of land over in the ghetto. I mean, this was the hood in West Dallas. But it was a beautiful piece of land. You know, I could look at the city, and I used to go up there, and I was going to build me a big, tall, high-rise, big condo, and have me a big 6,000 square foot apartment on the top floor. And I live in an 800 square foot apartment today. So I had I ended up living in a 250 square foot hotel room. I did because I made a couple of mistakes. I'll show you what I did. But anyway, I bought this land. I was going to build condos or townhomes on it. And then I started buying up other property around this old derelict hotel and started doing them incrementally, working on one at a time. And this is called the Belmont Hotel. If any of you have ever been to Dallas, it's an iconic hotel. It was there in the 40s. My dad used to take me here to eat when I was a kid at this hotel, and it was always mysterious. And this is what it looked like in 2003, and this is what it looks like today. As you can see, the bike lanes and the roads that we downsized the street with just paint, and that's what that looks like. And we took an old motor court hotel, and I see these motor court hotels around here. And I was laughing at Tim because he says, you like the motor court hotels? I said, I love these motor court hotels because they can be so cool. And so we ripped up a lot of the concrete and put landscaping in, and it became this really cool boutique art and music hotel. This was the restaurant that was with it, and it should have been torn down, but I just couldn't stand to lose the architecture of the way that restaurant looked. And so we redid it and turned it into a restaurant called Smoke. And so we also wanted to build other things around us. At the time, I built this hotel, and people were breaking in my hotel, and they were stealing our TVs, and they check in and trying to cook meth in the hotel rooms and things like that. So I had to get other people around me. So I got other people to buy their properties. I helped them buy other entrepreneurs, and I called them my guards, because then I didn't have to sit in my car at night and guard the hotel, keep people from stealing our TVs. So here's like a vet clinic we built next door. So it's not always about restaurants. It's about normal, average, everyday things. So who doesn't need a vet clinic, right? Somebody said, why do you put a vet clinic? Why aren't you putting restaurants and bars? Because people need vet clinics. And that's the market. See, it doesn't matter what I think. See, it don't matter what I think. What matters is what the market thinks. And the market said that. And then next door we had an old house built in the 20s. I loved this place. I couldn't tear it down. I tried to give it away for somebody to move it. And so I was going to build another condo. Thank goodness I didn't. I hate those things now. But so I started to do some drawings and figure out what I could do with it. So I wanted to build a recording studio on the back of a house. I didn't get it as a recording studio, but I did get it as a photography studio. And I sold it to a local photographer who lives in the house. He's got his studio out back. Here's a live work. See, live work doesn't always have to be in the same building. So it can be in two buildings side by side. You got enough space down here in the downtown in Amarillo. You can do all kinds of stuff like this. There's what it looks like today. It's really beautiful. And then we built little houses around it. See these houses? The one at the top right, that's 800 square foot house. It's 800 in Dallas, Texas, next to a derelict hotel in an area that was contaminated by lead and drugs and everything else. It sold for nearly $400,000 today for 800 square feet. It's ridiculous, crazy. So, and then we did art on the streets, because the city wouldn't approve us, so we just did it without permission. And every time we would do a new art piece, the city councilman would come out and break the bottle over the art and all that stuff. They had no idea that it wasn't approved by the city. So, so I'm not against doing something that's like that. So as you can see, there's some other pictures of the hotel and some other art going on. And so here's what happens to you in the early days of, this could happen to you right here in Amarillo. So you would come in and start building in an area. So I know the dentist I talked to back here, and even the mall, and there's some others that got some projects they're trying to do. And you'd maybe build something, and it may be even worth less than what you paid for it. This hotel, when I built it back in 2004, rebuilt it, I put about $5.5 million in it, and it appraised for $3.5 million. My net worth went down $2 million. And we struggled and broke even and struggled in 2006, 2008, 2010, 2012. After the recession, we started to learn what we were doing in the hotel business, and we made something so cool that somebody came along and way overpaid us for it, and paid us $12 million for it. And that's what happens. That's what happened. That's what happens with incrementalism happens, because we had other things going in that neighborhood. It's kind of a flywheel effect. You do one little thing, and you do another little thing, and another thing, and all of a sudden you start creating culture and in the vibe, the X factor, the secret sauce. Where does the culture come from? Who knows where culture comes from? Culture comes from the usually lower middle class people. It comes from young people. It comes from artists, musicians. It comes from people who are having to work on the edge, to figure out how to do something. The more money we get, the more comfort we get, the less edgy we are. So that's where I spend all of my money. I told these guys today, I spend all my money on new real estate so I can try to keep my edge as I get older. So, and this is Midlothian. This is a 130-acre development south of Dallas, but it's an urban development. So it was 130 acres in the middle of town, and I bought an old farm, and I took the old farmhouse, moved it over a little bit and put it in the right place and turned it into a salon. It was built in the 1880s. And there was the barn. We turned it into a yoga studio. And then I wanted to build a retail center, shopping center, but this was back in like 2007, 2008, 9, and there was nobody going to give me a loan to build a shopping center. So I said, you know what, we'll just build the shopping center one store at a time. And that's what we did. We built this donut shop with a little apartment on the back. And I got somebody, convinced a donut maker to sell their house and come and buy this property. So it's an owner-occupied retail shopping center. And so then we built another little building to connect onto the side. This is old school, right? This is the way we used to do things. So, and then it became a cleaners today. And then we built another one. Built an insurance office. And actually the insurance office, we built him another little space. You can see he's got 2 front doors. So he's got a 1,700 square foot building. He has 900. He leases out 500 and then about 300 in the back. So he was a renter in a shopping center, and now he's a landlord, an investor, an owner, and building wealth for his family. And then we built another one. We built the Fuzzy's Taco, and the guy that owns the Fuzzy's Taco, he owns that too. And you can see we've got head-end parking off the street. And then you can see the little residential property in the back of the donut store, and right across the street are the houses. You can walk right to the donut store. So isn't that a cool idea? You can just walk out of your house to the donut store easily down the street. Some more photos. And this is what's going next to it. 3 fourplexes. See, these fourplexes can be built one at a time. So there's a retail on the bottom, office on the back, and 2 apartments on the top. And then here's a locally owned pharmacy, 3,000 square feet, right by these right. This is all together, right in one spot. And then there's the houses that we built. These are small lots. These houses are selling for around. They'll sell for around 400,000, 300 to 400,000. And we built small houses, 1,200 square foot, next to a 3,000 square foot. We mix housing together. We mix different sizes together. Because you know what? Families live together in different houses. My mother lives here. My sister lives here. And then you should always build things you like. And this is the park we put right in the middle of the neighborhood. And so I wanted a park with real swings, not plastic, those plastic things. And so we are always building on things we like. So this is Tyler Station. This is in Dallas. This was an old manufacturing facility. It's about nearly 100 years old, but it was right next to the DART Transit, the DART train station, which is Dallas Area Rapid Transit. And it was where wax paper was invented. And so it was a polluter of the air, and it was a polluter of the ground, and it was a polluter of water. And the neighborhood around it had been very controversial. It had been a 25-year cleanup when I bought it. I sealed up the last of 9 monitoring wells. We closed them up. And everybody that looked at this site, I looked at it for 5 years, wanted to tear it down and build apartments, stucco apartments. Nobody in the neighborhood around there wanted a bunch of more stucco, cheap apartments in their neighborhood. Nobody wanted it. So I decided to buy it. And we knew that we were going to keep the building, but we were going to figure out what to do with it. So we called it Manufacturing Meets Co-working. It was 2 stories. You see all those little boxes up there? See, those are all little businesses, 61 businesses. And the way I imagined this in the beginning, here's the way I imagined it. I imagined a manufacturing facility in 1920s was built with offices, research and development, manufacturing, woodworking, welding, a place to get a beer, a place to get your hair cut, a place to work out, a place to get something to eat. And now imagine that as lots of different businesses together. And this is how we did it. And so I had owned office buildings where you sheetrock the walls. You walk down those office buildings, they got sheetrock, and you never see anybody. And who wants to go in those office buildings anymore? Anybody? You don't want to go in those. So I wanted places where people would see each other. And secondly, I wanted a place where every time somebody moved, I didn't have to tear out all the offices and redo it again. New carpet. So I had no carpet, concrete floors, cattle panels. This is what these are. These are cattle panels on metal bars where tenants were only separated by that, and you could hear and see people. And there's a little bit of problem with it is you a little bit of problem with it in the sound, but the collaboration of people working together way far outweighs the sound. And you know what I spent on this? If anybody knows about construction, I spent about $35 a square foot rebuilding this building. 35, and that included roof, air conditioning, bathrooms, and the numbers worked. And I had to do that. I had to do that with these guys. These are my guys that work by the week. I couldn't hire a general contractor. I had to do this myself. And as you can see what it looked like on the side of that building, and you can see what it looked like in the beginning on the left, and over time, what it evolved to. It was full of raccoons, dead raccoons, and water, and contaminated with everything. And then what it became over time, graphic designers, and molders and woodworkers. We had videographers. I like to partner this guy that's there on the. He rebuilds furniture. He was a guy who scrapped metal and wood off the streets. You can see some of his stuff. A young guy, and he and I partnered, and he became our anchor tenant in this building. Today, he started off picking stuff off the street and making furniture, and today he's in like 25,000 square feet of this 100,000 square foot building. There's a photography studio, used to be the boiler room. There's our yoga studio, movement studio, and what it looks like today. There's our brewer, and this brewer is not just a hipster brew pub. This is a real manufacturing operation with a bar connected to it. And this is what they said about us. I didn't say this. Somebody came through and interviewed all of our people in this facility, and they called us as magical. And what it is became magical. This is like workforce development in a natural environment. See, there was a guy that worked with me at the hotel who was like a 60-year-old guy, and he was kind of one of these guys. He'd like to smoke a lot of weed, and he worked for me, and he'd come, and he'd always, trying to find jobs. And he was an artist, okay, and he painted, and nobody ever would buy his paintings. And he came over with me when I left the hotel, and he came here and he said, "Monty, give me a job. Let me sweep the floors. Let me do something." We let him sweep the floors, and he did a little bit of work. He tried to sell some of his art, and nobody bought it. But then he went to work for the welder in there. And this welder taught him how to weld, 60-year-old man. Welder taught him how to weld. He ended up making belt buckles and other things, and people started buying his welding. And so this workforce, this natural collaborative workforce, this natural environment, see, we created an environment which would make people work together. And I think you guys have a lot of opportunity to do that out there at the mall and probably other places here in town. This is Desoto Marketplace. This is a suburban shopping center. You got a bunch of these in town. All over. See this old shopping center surrounded by housing. It had a grocery store at one time. The red box is a grocery store, and it had the cleaners, and it had Mr. Jim's Pizza, and had a Chinese food place, a donut place, things like that in there. And it was a former hardware store after it was a grocery store. And then I bought it cheap with a package of properties after I sold my hotel. And I was going to put a 99-cent store in there and get rid of it, and just get rid of it. The mayor came to me of this town and said, "Monty, please don't put any more 99-cent stores in our city. We don't want any more." I said, "Okay, well, what can we do?" So that's what we did was I said, will you let me bust up the concrete and put gravel in the parking lot and put food trailers in the parking lot? I said, will you let me sell alcohol here? Will you let me do tattoos? Will you let me put residential units on the parking lot? Will you do away with the parking requirements? Will you let me mix different uses together? They said, yes, 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 we'll let you do all of it. So as you can see, the area right here, this is the street. We busted up the concrete. Those are the trailers. This is the building. And then this is the housing that's going in on the edge of the parking lot. And we began to plan what it was going to look like. And you can see today, we decided what goes inside the big box, what goes inside. So we did a plan. We did, using the cages, the cattle panels again. See all the purple areas? Those are restaurants. Those are 400 square foot restaurants. The green in the middle, those are retail, like a mall. The gray is eyelash school, a workout facility, and a yoga studio. And the brown is office, all mixed together. And here's these little starter kitchens. So 400 square feet, we could get $1,500 a month for a 400 square foot kitchen. We put the grease trap in and the vent hood and the things they needed. And then we cut holes in the building so you could serve out the front of the building because it looked really bad. And then we began to coach. This is the mayor and some of our coaching, because we knew that if these little entrepreneurs didn't make money, we would not be successful. So they had to be successful. We wanted them to make money so they could pay rent, that they could learn how to operate businesses. We could grow our own entrepreneurs. And that's what we did. Here's our youngest entrepreneur I'm with. He's a snow cone guy. He's 11 years old. We started here. He's been in business 2 years now, and that's his sister. And it's pretty amazing. And then here's cupcakes, and here's Thai food, and vegan soul food, and hats, and African wear, women's and men's. Here's another art school. Here's the offices. As you can see, the offices, they have no ceilings, so everything is open in the ceiling. And then there's our grand opening. And today, it's a very vibrant, ongoing incubator for small retail. And this is this is Bonton Farms in Dallas. This is one of the poorest areas in the country. 90% poverty, 75% unemployment. And this is the way I start. Here's concept drawing for me. So we needed homeless housing. We needed homeless housing. But nobody wanted homeless housing in their neighborhood. So I tried to figure out how to do it without subsidy, no government interference, how to do it without changing the zoning on a single family lot. So this is called the roommate house. And there's my first drawing, as you can see why I'm not an architect. And this is what we found out on this, is that we could build this little house, a good house, okay, not a really, really cheap house, which was what was happening in that area, for about $110 a square foot at the time. We owned the land, and that we could get rich people in Dallas to loan us money for low interest, 2% interest. So we had a 2-bedroom house with 2 roommate units connected to it, okay? So the total monthly cost to the owner of this house was $927 a month. The owner of this house was an ex-homeless guy who had been working for 5 years. And he owns this house. And now he rents 2 units out that look like hotel rooms for $250 each. His total monthly fee is $427 a month. Now you can't give an ex-homeless person a rental property, a house with rental units, without having a lot of mentoring. So he's very connected to the Bonton Farms Community Development Corporation. And this is what the floor plan looked like. So you can see, here's the 2-bedroom house. You've seen them, 2 shotgun bedrooms. Here's a kitchen, bathroom, a living room. Okay? And so if you put 2 rooms on and rent them, it's an apartment building as far as the city is concerned. So we hacked the code. So see, here's the hacking of the code. See that door goes through the house, goes through the bedroom into the other bedroom, and then we lock those doors. And then they come in through the front door, and these are the 2 roommate units. They live in like a little flat for $250 a month. They don't have a kitchen. They have a convection oven and a microwave. So, but they have an actual house now. And this is what it looked like as we got it done. And there's the 2 roommate units in the back. And the inside, as you can see, when they first started, they built this. When they first started, they said, we're just going to spend $17,000 fixing up a house. And I said, you can't do that and change somebody's life. You have to do it better. And again, it's not the gold package. It's not the McMansion. And this is what it looks like. So here's where you come in today. Here's who we need today. We need potential small developers, known as the operating partners. That's the people doing the work. We need potential investment partners, known as the money partners. It could be banks. It could be baby boomers that just want to invest, just people with money that want to invest. And then we need small development champions. These are the people in cities, neighborhoods, activist group, homeowner groups. This is who we need to do this kind of work. Small developers, who are they? They're real estate professionals. They can be nonprofit. They can be people from nonprofit associations. They can be brokers or property managers, architects, designers. We have some planners here, engineers, attorneys, architects, dentists. They can be contractors, home builders, or tradespeople, small business owners that are either in a related industry or not. I have this dream of one day, and I've actually realized this dream, where I pull up on the street in my car, and there's a house being built or a building being constructed. And I ask somebody where the developer is. And they tell me, that's him up in the rafters with his tool belt on. So, it's easier to teach a carpenter to be a businessman than it is a businessman to be a carpenter. So I think that's who ought to be, that's who can do this kind of work. Small investors, local community bankers, property owners. A property owner could contribute their property to a small developer to do a deal. Okay, retired individuals with high net worth, private equity, angel investors, wealth management people, land banks and trusts, and other people from foundations, the small development champions. This is city management. You have to have the city. You need your city on board. Hopefully your council, your mayor, your city managers, your planners, your economic development people in county, regional, and state, nonprofits, universities. This is who we need. Business association, chamber of commerce. This is who we need, the small business champions. So we do a workshop that comes next, and this is what we teach. It's this one-day workshop. The project formation process, how to get financing, what the building types and site planning, how do you do that? How to do a financial pro forma. That's basically a projection. How to ask for money, how to acquire and close on properties, how to create a business, how to create a project. And so some of the great first projects, just people overcomplicate getting into this business with too big a deal, too many units. Just buy an existing building and fix it up, okay? Or rehab an old house. Or take one of these buildings, you've got these buildings right downtown, live in the top floor. Create a couple of apartments and some retail in the bottom. Okay, build a fourplex. See, if you build a 1 to 4 family unit, it's the same thing as if you go to the FHA and get a loan today. 1 to 4 units is the same as 1. You can get an FHA loan for anything under 4 units. With off-the-shelf financing, that's what you can do if you occupy like 51% of it. And you can finance that over 30 years. These are some of my favorite photos. This comes from Detroit. And what I'm seeing, what's happened up there, which has gone from way down. We haven't experienced nothing like that here, I promise you. Nature is actually taking over the real estate up there, but it's coming back. And so if you buy a property today, and I was talking to Tim about this earlier. And by the way, Tim Engel here, you guys are lucky, really lucky to have a guy like this. You have a local grassroots community organizer who put the money on to bring us to town and do this work. You're really lucky to have him do this, and I appreciate him doing this because he helps us meet our mission by doing what he's doing. But he can take his properties or an old property, and the first thing you do is clean and haul off and demolish all the items. Clean it, get rid of everything out of it so you can see it. See, when you get it all clean, you get all the stuff out, you can see what's there. And it'll change. A property will change on time. And then you want to plan on the site. See, this way you can take it in small steps. Plan on the site with your architect and your contractors. Get everyone at the site and get them on the same page. Don't have an architect go do a project, do a bunch of drawings for you, and get a bunch of plans of something you cannot build. That happens all the time. And then you budget and you update all the time as you're drawing. And this is what you do and where you begin. And so here's where you are today. So maybe you're on the bottom of the ocean today and you want to go to the moon. We all want to, right? We all have our moon we want to go to. And we have some steps we have to get there. So if you're on the bottom of the ocean today, the first thing you want to do, you don't want to be thinking about the rocket ship yet. You got to be thinking about a mask first to get up to the bank. So every time you take a step, your brain expands. It actually expands. When you have a mission involved, when you have a purpose, when you've committed your life to your neighborhood, to your city, that's your purpose, that's your moon. And you take those steps, the right things will line themselves up in front of you. You don't have to know the 8th or 9th or 10th step yet. Oh, you got to just take one step at a time. So don't get ahead of yourself. Do it incrementally. Then you can build confidence and self-esteem as you go. And this ain't about how hard you hit. This is about how hard you can get hit and keep moving. This is tough business. It takes a community to raise our children, right? It takes a community to rebuild the things that we've done. We've built a lot of bad stuff, over the last 60, 70 years. I've done some of it too, and we've got to change that we've built and try to start to do a little bit better job and try to rebuild a lot of the things that we've got. And that's what we're asking you to do. That's what I'm asking you to do today. I'm not coming to Amarillo to build anything. I build at home in my farm, and then I come and share these experiences with people around the country. And so it's up to you to help rebuild this country, to rebuild the middle class, to build wealth for locals. And this is how we do it, one step at a time. Thank you for having me here. I think we can take a few questions if you want.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Monty. Hopefully you can see sort of how this goes along with the lecture we had last month about, we're in this big financial issue through suburban growth. How do we get out of it? This is a large part of how we get out of it. So anyways, I have a couple of mics here I'd like to run to people. So I have a question right here.
What was your answer to his question he asked you to begin with?
What was this question?
Would you be here the rest of your life to take this project on?
That is a good question. I'm weighing myself. So the question was, will I be here the rest of my life? I'm not sure. Maybe.
Let me tell you what happens real quick when you do that. When you can hear from anybody out there that talks about being successful or anything or really create. It's the hardest thing to do is find that purpose. Okay, and when you commit to something for the rest of your life, and you can't just say you are. Okay, because the universe knows whether you are or not. It has to be real. But when you do that, when you commit to that, what happens is all the luck, all the karma, all God's world, whatever you want to say, however you believe, all starts to line up when you commit. And things will line up for you when you make that commitment. You will not have to worry. And for me, I had something happen to me a long time ago that caused me to commit to Southern Dallas County for the rest of my life. And believe me, I would be in Amarillo and Michigan and South Bend and places. I've seen some beautiful places I wanted to leave Dallas and go to. But I made a commitment a long time ago. And either that commitment was real or it wasn't. And it was real. And so that's why I can't come here and build. That's why I have to come here and help you build your community. In fact, you can build your community better than I could because you're here. This lady had something. It creates luck. I'm a big believer in luck. I'd rather be lucky than good any day.
So I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to pick one two-part question, which is when you have worked with people, business owners who want to purchase your buildings, are you always part of that deal? And the second part of that question is, what do you charge for your portion of the loan?
So I try to not be in somebody's business forever. So I may loan somebody money and be their partner till they pay me the money and then I'm out. Because what I want them to have is I want them to have the whole thing. And if I'm always like a majority owner, like I know a lot of deals where the money guys will put up and always have 51%, you'll never have the deal yourself. And so who wants to get excited about that? You might be excited in the beginning, but eventually you'll resent that. And so I do my deals where I'm in it until they pay me back, and then I'm out. And what I charge for my money is usually something very, very small. I usually charge a fee to build the building. Like the one I built for $475, I probably built that for $400, and I made about $75,000. And then I charge the same interest on my money as the bank charged him. the same interest.
Charged you on your construction loan?
So I loaned part of the money to the entrepreneur. I was the investor. I was charged the same as the bank charged. The bank did it was like 5.25%, and I did the same.
And you're involved in every deal like that?
No, I'm not involved in every deal like that. I'm involved in a lot of them like that, especially in the early days when I'm trying to get a neighborhood started. Once the neighborhood gets started and the appraisals are high enough, and then usually it can go on its own. I usually have to do that just in the beginning when we're just getting started and nobody wants to come. So for instance, we're always trying to get restaurants, any of you in the real estate, but you're always trying to get a restaurant to come. And if I called you and said, bring your restaurant over here and move into my building and rent from me, you're going to say to me, okay, Monty, give me 6 months free rent, finish it all out, give me cheap rent for 3 years, and then cheaper, give me. But if I say to you, look, I'm not going to give you any of this, but I'll help you buy a building. I will co-sign for you. I will help you. I'll loan you money. And I'm doing it as the developer and the investor. I'm not saying you have to do that. You have investors in the community that you can partner with and do this. Then I say you come over, own this property. You would own this property like we were talking about today. You own this. Okay, you're not asking for all those free things now. And everybody wants a piece of the action. And that's where a community ought to get. As a community, we ought to be concerned about our own people getting wealth and getting a piece of the action instead of the guy from out of town with the big development coming to town, to get all the money, and then you're just a renter. And you build a restaurant, you build a brand, and you build it in somebody else's building. That's not very smart.
Got 3 questions running. I'll give them sort of to the order I saw. First here.
How do you contain gentrification in an old neighborhood?
That's a good question.
I see gentrification in this question as an evil.
Yes.
My question.
I do too. I like to use, if you read anything about me, you'll read the term. You'll read this term, remember this term. I was waiting for him, so
He's talking to you.
yeah.
Sorry, I started managing the meeting.
So remember this term, gentrification. Gentrification. Here's what gentrification is. Gentrification is when the locals get in early enough and own all the properties instead of the big developers that come to town. It's where you can get in early. And this is what we're trying to do, is get local people to get in and be the developers, be the owners of these properties, be there, because then when gentrification comes barreling through, one of 2 things is going to happen. One is they can't run you off, okay, if you don't want to go. Number 2, if you decide you want to go, you get rich, okay? We can't stop gentrification totally, because a lot of places need work and they need help. And when you make them good, you're going to be a victim of your own success. And I always say this, is we don't really have an affordable housing problem, and we don't have we have an income problem. See, I'd like to see people have more income. We even take, if you had a house with a couple of rooms you could rent out, or you can do things. These are the kind of things that we encourage. Aging baby boomers in place can fix their houses and rent 2 rooms out and stay in the same place. That you can own. You have to own the property, but gentrification is a whole lot different. You have to be involved also as a community when zoning is changed. You got a planner back there right behind you. When they come in and change the zoning, and the big developers come to town, and they give the chamber money, give the school district money, and they give people money. They support campaigns, and then they get zoning to put 50 pounds of sand in a 30-pound bag. There's the cities have a natural look to them of a right scale, and they can get way out of scale. They can get way out of scale, and that's what we're experiencing in Dallas like crazy right now. It's disgusting, and you have to get ahead of the game. The best way to do it is to own property.
Are you going to follow? I said thank you. Okay. That was my follow-up.
First of all, man, I want to say thank you for coming. I know there's at least a couple members of the choir back here who've appreciated every last bit of what you're preaching. So my curiosity comes more from, like, where are you hitting points of resistance? Like, where's your strongest amount of resistance coming from when you try to put this concept out and forward to people in the community in Dallas to do what you're doing as opposed to big box gentrification?
So, politicians are on short terms, right? Your elected officials are on short terms, and like where I'm from in Duncanville, it's 2-year terms, and you need big successes really quick. And so they don't take seriously a small donut shop or a small snow cone stand or a small barber or rebuilding one 800 square foot house. They don't take that stuff seriously. When I think it's the most serious thing that we should be doing. It's what we should be. We should be incentivizing. We should be working on that. And so they don't provide the right zoning, where you can build, up against the street with no parking, where you have, or you can't mix retail and residential without putting in a huge fire system in, or you can't get financing. And that's probably the biggest thing is financing. Because if you want to build a little retail shop with 2 apartments, you're talking about a $500, $600, $800,000 $1 million deal. So that means you got to come up with $200,000 or $300,000 in down payment. So those are the main resistance points. And truly, if when I say that we should be working, we're working on the wrong thing. Our policies in our cities are set on the wrong things. We set them on. We give people with big boxes and big apartment deals and big things. We give them incentives. We help them build roads. We help them get sewer. We help them get things like that. If we didn't help them, they would build smaller stuff, I think. And if this is true, do you all agree that we're only as strong as our weakest link in a neighborhood? If we have a chain, are we only as strong as our weakest link? Do y'all believe that? Y'all all believe that? Then what should we be working on today? The weakest link. Because if I'm a strong link, then you're a weak link, then is my link any better than yours? We work on the wrong things. We should be incentivizing and working on entrepreneurs. We should be working on, better affordable housing. We should be working on things like that instead of working on incentivizing big ugly projects.
Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, Monty, first of all, thank you for coming to Amarillo. And one challenge we have in downtown, which Beth is aware of, and my friend Ben over there in the real estate business is aware of, we have several significant buildings downtown that have absentee ownership, and they are priced astronomically high. And so they just sit there, and it's kind of frustrating or challenging to try to build something around them, not knowing what's going to happen with these big, huge properties.
Well,
do you have any kind of strategy?
Yeah, I have a strategy. Take what you got and do what you can right now with what you got, and don't worry about them. And pray for death for people that don't know. So, because only death is good. Death is a good thing. Death is not a bad thing. Death can shake some of these properties, loose. And so people that hoard, there's hoarders, there's real estate hoarders. Okay. And they'll say this to you if you call them, and they'll say this to you on the phone. Well, I'm not giving it away, right? I'm not going to give it away. That's what they'll say to you. But there's a special place, and where, for people that do this kind of stuff to cities. The only thing we take with us is what we give away, really in the end. And so, people that do that and they really hurt cities, and at least they could partner with a local developer, or they could figure, I'm sure there's somebody here in town that would love to partner with one of those, with those people, and you could do things. I think the city's got some properties too over here by the ballpark. If I'm, that they miss the scale. You got the same thing. Right there, you got retail centers that are completely empty. And they missed the scale. They built too big a retail. Should have built small retail. They would have leased it up. Those could be fixed. That's what our challenge is try to fix some of these silly, mistakes that we've made. I've made them too. I'm not really pointing fingers at anybody out there. I've made mistakes too. We got to figure out how to fix them. But I'd say do what you can with what you got right now and don't worry about them. And you may even influence them. You may be able to influence the bigger developers. And you got some nice stuff. I like your stuff, and I hope you guys will do stuff. I think you got a nice piece of property there.
Some of us here are involved with trying to rehab this gigantic hospital that's been sitting empty for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever had an experience of getting multiple investors, because it's going to be a big project to get this thing done, that no single person is going to be able to do? Have you ever had an experience of multiple investors coming in to help kickstart something like this?
Is that the north side where we saw the hospital?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I like that. I like that project. You're going to think the weird stuff I like, it's going to be, I love them all. I love that hospital. It's really cool. I'm currently working on a 16-acre site for a hospital right now. Very similar to that, a 4-story. And what we're doing is it's got multiple buildings on the site. We want to add things to the site, and I'm currently working with Catholic Charities to do 90 single-room occupants, 90 homeless units. And I would call them the really working poor. I would call it let's say below zero is the mentally ill, and mentally ill, but it's 0 and above. And so what we're doing with this hospital is mixing homeless and middle-class housing together and entrepreneurial uses together. So imagine you walk in the bottom of the hospital. So imagine walking in the hospital. So you're walking in the hospital and you go in and you walk inside and there's a guy over here selling hot dogs, like a mall. And then there's a daycare. And then you go up the floors, you get off on the floors, and the rooms make good units, right? They make good rental units. And most of them have bathrooms in them in most of these hospitals. And then in the area where the nurses are, you might have a dentist or a doctor. So you've got all these mix of uses and all these mix of things going on. So with the Catholic Charities financing a big portion of this, what we did was we took the whole site and we condoed the site because we couldn't plat it because all the utilities and everything, the parking was all mixed. And so they took a part of that. And then we broke the other pieces up and we're selling the other pieces and developing the other pieces with different developers under a condo organization. So we just broke it up into a bunch of pieces. And that's really that's something common with us incrementalists and what we would do, is how we would break things into pieces and then finance them. Now, the common way today would be to have what's called a capital stack, okay, with tax credits and tax abatements and grants from the city and HUD loans and commercial loan. You'd have this stack of when you had the groundbreaking, you'd have 30 different lenders out there, and what every one of those lenders has got? Fees and overhead. And by the time you got through, about half the money got to the bottom line, that's why I like the Catholic Charities, is because they have their own financing, their own money, and they were a really good partner to have. And plus they knew how to, I don't know how to take care of the homeless. They knew how to do that. I was helping them create the environment. And I think that you could do something like that there. And you could actually have where people are not only getting jobs, coming out of that, but actually, learning how to be entrepreneurs. You think about being an entrepreneur is as little as, I've helped a couple of people just pick up trash in parking lots. Now they own businesses, portering services, picking up trash in parking lots. There's a lot of things that we can do, lots of different entrepreneurial, tasks and things that we can help people start businesses with nothing, with no money. And I think you want to mix that. And let me tell you one other story with that real quick. I went down to San Antonio and I viewed their homeless, like some guy down there, some billionaire gave the city like $100 million for their homeless, campus, and it was a hospital and an old thing. And it was beautiful, beautiful buildings, big tent outside where people could sit outside and stuff. And all this, and the new buildings to match the old buildings. It was the saddest place I ever been. Saddest, you know why it was sad? Because it was all people that were down. So we have to mix people, we have to integrate people back together. We don't want, we want people, we want the down and out, and the middle class, and the affluent, and people with jobs, and people with, with different skills and stuff mixed together. It's the only way we can fix things. We can't fix it the other way. It'll never get fixed.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we have a plug. I have two plugs. One plug is, so Monty's fielding questions right now. We have the room in the Sims building, room 275, booked tomorrow from 8 to noon. And so we have some time slots, and people are going to come by and talk about potential projects, ask questions. If no one's present, I might just give Monty some more tours of different sites of property owners that I know. But so talk to me about if you want to talk to Monty and or come by in the Sims building tomorrow, and then another plug.
I just want to add on to what Monty said, talking about zoning and city policies and things like that. And for those of you who aren't aware, we have a code from the 1960s that we're currently updating right now. So we'd really love participation in that process of what you'd like to see as far as mixed uses, allowing more density, more flexibility, because we've had some participation, but not a whole lot. And this is the chance that has been decades in the making. So in January, we're actually going to have the first draft of it. Then we're going to have another public input process, get feedback. So we really want to hear from folks as we go through this, because council approved this project and we want to make the best out of it.
Can I counterplug you? Sure. I would say after Kevin Shepard's presentation, you have to build in tax value per acre analysis into your zoning.
Yes.
I think the city has to do that. And if it doesn't do it, it's going to be lipstick on a pig. Strong words, but.
So you have to, the zoning thing is very tricky, because what happens is when somebody's doing zoning, they might show you a picture over here of a plan or something. But by the time that gets into words in a document, okay, you go, wait a minute, we saw this plan over here. That's not what we saw. So the words are tricky. And I like to have pictures. I don't know if you guys, I like to have pictures that says, here's a picture we want, here's one we don't want. That's very clear. We don't want garages, snout garages, those snout garages on the cheap. We want some classic houses, we want buildings up against the road. We want, you have all these 6-lane streets, around here that are way overbuilt. They're way overbuilt. They are everywhere in Texas. They got way more capacity than you have. Those streets could be downsized. The one ways could be 2 ways. You got on-street parking. The more on-street parking you can create, the less parking lots you get. Parking lots do not get you value per acre. The parking lots take away value per acre. You also don't want to create parking problems in your city. If you put a bunch of 5,000 square foot restaurants in one area, together, like typically what happens in Dallas, and you're going to have a parking problem. But if you have 1,000 square foot restaurants, boutique restaurants, then you don't have, you can control things with scale. You've seen me talk about scale today and size, and you can really control. You got a lot of public land here that's already paved that should be parking, on-street parking. On-street parking gets people to put doors on the street, gets life. You park your car on the street, you get out of your car, you walk down the sidewalk, other people start walking on the sidewalk, you have more walkable neighborhood, more bikeable neighborhoods, you have more multi transportation where you can go in the car, you can go on the bike, you can go on, you can walk, you can have. Those are the kind of things that zoning, has, when we're doing zoning, it's not just about the building, but it's about the roads. It's about where the parks are and where the schools are. We used to design cities 100 years ago all together. And then somewhere along the line, after World War II actually, we started designing cities in silos. You know, all the rich people over here, all the poor people over here, all the shopping centers here, all the jobs over here. You have to drive your car. You know, and we're secrets. We're the secret of life, and the secret where real integration happens. And I'll tell you this one last story. I'll just tell you this quickly because this is a good story. But this is where life really happens. So you have a restaurant, and you have a doctor who lives in a neighborhood. And the doctor goes to the restaurant every day to have breakfast. And when he's having breakfast there, he begins to meet the busboy who grew up in the neighborhood in poverty. And so the doctor and the busboy begin to talk. They begin to integrate. They begin to influence each other. As the busboy gets older and goes to school, the doctor influences him to go to school and become a doctor, and actually helps fund the busboy. And the busboy discovers a cure for AIDS. This story through history has happened thousands of times, where people like that. That's where us baby boomers, begin to influence millennials, and where we begin to respect each other and get to know each other on a level that you cannot get to know each other in a car. And so that's how great things happen right there. So.
Monte Anderson, everyone.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So thank you all for coming out.
Sims Building, room 275.
Let's give Tim. You guys really should give Tim a round. This guy's a champ. This guy's a champion here.
Thank you, Monte.